and welcome to this presentation on team interventions, specifically team facilitation. I apologize in advance if you have to look at the top of my head a lot of the time. I will be reading some of this stuff to you. The font is bigger, but I still have to get closer to the screen. So with that in mind, here we go. So, overview of team facilitation. The purpose of team facilitation is to ensure that a group meeting remains productive, focused on the agenda, identifies key problems and solutions, divides workload, and allows for meeting reflection. Good facilitation should allow for all team members to participate and offer insight into potential problems and how to solve them. Alright, so that gives you guys a general overview on what the process is supposed to do. Now, let's move on. Overview Part 2. The features of facilitation. Good facilitation ensures collaboration between group members, and facilitation helps guide conversation. We'll go over that more later. Steps and how to use. So what's next is the steps in a cycle for facilitation. There are 6 steps in total, and we're going to talk about them now. First is the introduction. The introduction is just exactly how it sounds. The facilitator will allow the group members to get settled in and check with the group members to ensure that every group member understands what the purpose of the meeting is. Then the facilitator will go over the agenda and the topics that are to be discussed. Once that's done, then we move on to the gathering stage. In this stage, the facilitator will ask the group members to give their feedback on the topics to be discussed and gather different perspectives from each group member regarding each topic, so that you're not just looking at the topic from one lens. Then we look at selecting. In this stage, we select the topics based on importance. So, we decide which topics need to be handled first, second, third, etc. And we discuss the topics in that order. Now, this can become tricky if a group member really wants a topic to be covered first. This is where the facilitator comes in so that a good consensus can be reached. Okay, then we get to step 4, which is handling. This is where the meat of the meeting happens. Based on the information gathered in steps 1 through 3, problems are solved, key points are made, and basically the group members understand what needs to be done in order to solve the problems and key points discussed in the meeting. Then we have the planning stage. This is the stage in which you plan out the execution. So how will the handling stage be actually executed by the team? So we've identified problems and solutions. Exactly how and who will handle each step in solving the problem. So basically your task workload is created, tasks are made, assigned, and deadlines are set. Okay, then you have conclusions. So basically you summarize the meeting, you summarize the topics discussed, the problems identified, the solutions identified, the task breakdown for each group member, and then you thank the participants for coming and you reflect on what went well in the meeting and what you could improve on in the next meeting. Now, it should be said that trying to do this is not as cut and dry as this presentation makes it seem, and we're going to discuss that in the next couple of slides. And here we are, the strengths and weaknesses of facilitation. So let's go over the strengths first. Number one, it helps the meeting be productive. So as you saw, facilitation, when you're talking about that 6-step formula, has a very linear idea to it. And the purpose of it is to help the meeting stay on track and avoid unnecessary conversations which might lengthen the meeting or confuse other participants. And it helps guide team member participation. This is strength 2. So sometimes in groups, as we've discussed a little bit previously, there can be a tendency for certain group members to speak more and other group members to speak less. With this in mind, it's important for the facilitator to make sure that all group members are heard and understood. This is one of the key concepts in facilitation. If you don't ensure that all group members are heard and understood, you've failed at facilitating. Now, the weaknesses of facilitation. Number one, facilitation assumes the facilitator has the ability to lead. So, if you have a facilitator that's a very timid person and is not used to handling large group meetings, facilitation will fail, because it's the purpose of the facilitator to make sure everything stays on track. And if they can't lead the meeting, then there's no point in attempting to facilitate. Number two, facilitation assumes that all meeting members will follow the facilitation roadmap and listen to others. So this one's pretty self-explanatory. When you're dealing with groups, you're dealing with other people, which means there's a tendency for there to be a little bit of friction. And if you try to structure the meeting in such a linear fashion as the PowerPoint outlines, sometimes, more often than not actually, it won't go exactly as you've outlined. So you have to be able to adapt on the fly and be flexible in terms of the 6 steps, because it's never as cut and dry as these 6 steps make it appear. So here are the examples. I'll read them to you and then we'll discuss them just a little bit. So Jenny is asked to lead a meeting regarding the purchase of new computers for the marketing department of her company. In attendance will be herself, her supervisor, the head of acquisitions, and the head of IT. Jenny understands that each group member will have different concerns, so she decides to use the facilitation process to ensure the meeting is productive, problems are solved, tasks are assigned, and the correct equipment is purchased. So this text just gives you a general overview of how facilitation might be used. And in this example, you have groups from different departments that will have different concerns. So let's go through them. Jenny is going to have to deal with acquisitions, for example, because one of their main concerns is how much will these computers cost. Next, we look at her supervisor. Her supervisor will be concerned with, will these computers meet the needs of my department? Will they meet the needs or the reasons for which we are purchasing them? Then you have the IT department, or the IT professional. Their concerns might be, will these computers meet the standards that all of our computers have to meet in terms of hardware specs and serviceability? And then also you have Jenny herself, whose purpose is to take all of these different perspectives into consideration and help drive the meeting toward a positive conclusion. And keep in mind that the overall purpose of the meeting is to ensure that the correct computers are purchased. Okay, so that should give you a basic idea on when and why this process of facilitation would be used. And just in case we need another example, here's example 2. Jack is asked to lead a meeting regarding his company's new hiring policies and practices in accordance with their organizational development plan. All major decision makers from every department, including HR, will be in attendance. Since this meeting is large, Jack decides facilitation is needed in order to keep the agenda on track and cover relevant topics at hand. So this is another situation in which facilitation is necessary. In the previous example, we had a meeting with a clearly defined topic and just a couple of decision makers. In this example, we have a very large meeting concerned with several different departments within the company, and Jack will have to take all of these considerations in mind and help develop task breakdowns for how to implement these new hiring policies in accordance with their organizational development plan. With this example in mind, and since the group meeting is so large, it's important that Jack, as the facilitator, be able to identify everyone's concerns, synthesize them, make them understandable by the other group members, select the relevant topics, discuss those topics, get input on them by every group member, and end the meeting positively and with tasks for each department outlined. Okay, next is the references. I won't read those. Y'all can see them, and I hope this presentation gives you a good starting point, an idea of what facilitation is and how it can be used. Thank you very much.